Hi everyone and welcome to my Wol Hobby YouTube channel. With me today is Chantal Miyagishima. Very difficult name, but she is very well known as Knitatude. Welcome, Chantal.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to chat.
I love it that you could make the time for me.
Oh
Um,
my God.
it's bright and early where you are in Calgary, right?
Yeah, I'm in Canada. I'm in Calgary, Canada, and it's 8 a.m. for me.
Okay. Well, it's a bit later here, but I'm so glad that we could have this talk in advance before you were going
Yeah.
to work. So I'm going to ask you things about Knititude, how it started, how your designs came to life, and once I am going to put this interview live, I will do a cast on party, at least with myself, but I hope other knitters will join in because your sweater scarf has been on my to knit list for a very, very long time.
Oh,
So,
I am wearing it
yeah,
today.
you're wearing one. That is great. We will get to that. First of all, what did drew you to the knitwear design world, and how did Knititude come to life?
Yeah, so I started Knititude I started knitting in 2012, and then I just essentially started making myself like circle scarves, and then I started making too many circle scarves, and I had a bunch of girlfriends ask for them. I was like, yeah, for sure, I can totally just like but it'll cost you like 40 bucks. And that's kind of how Knititude became like an entity. Like I didn't start designing until 2016, in like the late fall. I sold physical like items and hats and scarves, and I did like the whole market scene for about, I think like Knititude kicked off technically in 2014, and I did markets up until I think, but I like 2018, and then started designing in 2016. And I was a person that like never followed a pattern. I didn't know how to read patterns. I found them really confusing. I was like, it's like a whole like language that I don't know. Um, and then I just had a girlfriend. She was like, you write all of these different patterns for yourself that you constantly use for your own like booth for like whether it's headbands or etc. Why don't you just write down those steps and sell them? And I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. So like that's kind of how the designing aspect of Knititude came out. And then I was just like, I want to make garments. So I just went full into, instead of like making scarves and headbands in designs, I was like, I'm just gonna make clothes because that seems like the easiest thing that I could do.
Mhm. Okay.
It's not. Full stop. It's not.
I know. I know. I am designing my first sweater for my daughter, and
Oh,
so I know how much work goes in that.
it's
So,
a lot.
and the designs that you were knitting before you started designing yourself, were that by certain designers, or did you
No,
just
because
cast on and knit?
yeah, because I didn't like really understand that patterns were a thing, and like the ones that I like checked on, like I remember going onto Pinterest, and like I now realize that it was Stephanie from All About Ami. She had like a Gaptastic cowl, and I remember looking at it on her blog, and I was like, I don't know what any of that means. I'm just not even gonna try doing that, when like in reality it's just a knit one, purl one in different orders. But no, I like made up all my own stuff. So I feel like I learned really silly things that I probably could have learned from someone else. Like the idea of like, I was like, oh, I love this stockinette stitch. It's so pretty. And I made a scarf, and then it literally curled on itself. And I was like, why did it do that? And I'm now like, oh, because stockinette naturally curls. But I just like completely learned by trial and error. So I was always just constantly playing and being like, okay, well, if I make a headband, but I want to do like a cable in the middle, then I probably have to put like an edging that seems like it's like structured. So everything was constantly how I kind of trial and errored it. My first
And
pattern that I ever
when
did was the cloaked and cloth poncho from Two of Wands. And I remember being like, how do I do this?
And once you started designing your own patterns and putting them out there, you were a lot smarter already, I bet. But do you use a tech editor to help you keep on track and to make the patterns readable and accessible to all the knitters?
Yeah, so I'm like a hybrid because my stuff is really simple. I have a tendency to just mainly use like my testers. I love my testers. They're seriously wonderful. But I do have a tech editor for a bunch of things where I'm like, I'm not sure if that's the correct math for it. So her name is Nikki. She's from Hannington. I can never know how to pronounce the name. Hygge, Hygge. So she'll go in and like check my stuff. So she's wonderful. She's also in Canada too.
Okay. And do you do your own grading, or do you have her grade pattern or your testers?
Hmm. No, I grade everything. She's only graded two of my patterns. One of them was my coquille sweater because I was like, I graded everything except for the sleeves. And I was like, I don't know how to get the beads to land in the same place. So I sent it off to her. But no, I grade everything. And I think it's also one of the reasons why I've learned how to grade better for things because I like understand body shapes. And it also means that it's a lot easier for me when I'm actually coming up with my size, where I'm like, okay, if I'm going to be doing it for my size here, what am I going to be doing for like a 3X? Am I going to be playing with shoulder shaping? Do I need to take that into account? How many stitches do I need to take if I'm not using stockinette? So I'm like always trying to think while I'm designing of how it's going to actually grade for other sizes too.
And how size inclusive are your patterns?
So as of 2019, all of my patterns go from extra small to 5X, which is a 28 to a 62-inch bust. Yeah, so I've
That's
been designing since
awesome.
probably, yeah, 2016. So like late fall, I think I had one design. It's called the Bum Hugger, which is just like a bolero, so it's one size. And I essentially kept on adding more sizes as I kept on going, which was really wonderful because I feel like my testers taught me a lot of things, and I think I had the grace to be able to like learn how to do one size at a time, which I don't think as many designers get the opportunity to do now, because I think that there is a call for plus size and like in like size inclusivity, which I think is great. Um, I just got to learn at a slower pace. Like, I was like, oh, okay, let's figure out that. Like it's so silly, but like the fact that my brain didn't automatically be like, oh, a person with a larger bust does not have a larger neck. So why would I not give like why does their neck hole become so much bigger? How do I like alter that? Which is seems like so duh, but when you're like not thinking about it, you're just like, how did I not think about that? That's so obvious.
Yeah, well, once you design something and you make it bigger as it grows longer, then you will learn quickly.
Yeah, yeah. So like I've just like learned every single size. But yeah, now I go for extra small to 5XL.
Yeah. Your designs often blend traditional knitting techniques with modern aesthetics. Could you share some insights about your creative process and how you strike the balance?
Yeah, a lot of my inspiration actually comes from my mom. So I don't know if you guys have the store at Banana Republic in, well, because I'm in Canada, the States, but it's like it's very classic lines, and my mom always looks like she like walked out of a Banana Republic ad. Like she's just like very well put together. It's all very tailored, clean lines, usually solid colors. Like it kind of reminds me of like an upscale yacht kind of look, if that kind of explains it. um and I've always loved that in my designs because I'm like, I want my designs to be able to be worn timelessly. Like I think that there's so many things that are really quick trends and they're great for that period, but then it also brings into like the slow fashion versus fast fashion. To me, I love things that are going to be timeless. So I love taking older techniques and being able to put like a modern spin to them so that they can stay around forever.
Yes, well, and knitting is slow fashion, right? If you spend hours and hours of knitting something, it would be just stupid if you wouldn't wear it for years and years to come.
Yeah, which is wild. It always like blows my mind when people are like, "Oh, I don't wear my knits." And I'm like, "What do you mean you don't wear your knits? Like that's why you're making them. You're taking so much time." Like I feel like my entire like goal is I want to wear this. I don't want to just like knit it. I want to wear it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your first design, you mentioned it earlier, but what is your most favorite design and the most recent design?
I'm kind of wearing both of them to be totally honest, except for one. So my favorite design that is probably the most popular is my sweater scarf. So I will quickly just give a little stand up, which is essentially a scarf with sleeves. My newest design I am also wearing, which is it's called my confidence crop because when I first started wearing like shorter tops, I was like, I don't know if I feel comfortable wearing this. And I had a bunch of girlfriends being like, no, you wear whatever you want because you look beautiful in it. So yeah, my sweater scarf for sure is up there. My newest, which is coming out in June, is a confidence crop. But I would say my favorite sweater that I've ever done, it's called my Easy Eyelet Yoke. And it's got like eyelets on the front and back. It's just a really simple beginner friendly pattern that it works up in worsted. I have it designed in a sport weight, a worsted weight, and a super bulky weight. And I just find that it's like such a beginner friendly pattern. So this one is probably my favorite. And it uses my favorite yarn, which is called Chainette from Lion Brand. And it's like a blown alpaca, like baby alpaca, which is just, it feels like you're wearing a finger weight sweater, but you're wearing a worsted weight sweater. So it's like, you would assume that you'd be like, I'm weighed down by a bunch of wool, but it's just nice and chill. Sorry, my
Yes,
chair.
it's very, very light, but the insulation is really, really good with the blown
Yeah,
yarns.
yeah. Which
And
is
I
beautiful.
can imagine you need that in Calgary. We not so
Yeah.
much. So, and I didn't know your the sweater that you just showed that it was also in sport weight, but that's because that's a weight that I could wear here. So
Yeah, yeah. No,
worsted would.
I'm in freezing temperatures for I would say half at least 8 months out of the year. It's anything uh from like -5 to like -35. It degrees. It's freezing.
Yes.
I'm by the
And
mountains.
well, we all saw your mountains because every time when the sky is blue and you have a new design, you put on your wedding dress again and you go out there to show it.
I know,
That
it's so
is so
wonderful.
cool.
I honestly never anticipated getting into my wedding dress more times in the year that I wasn't married because I got married back in 2013. So that wedding dress, thank goodness it has a corset back. Because I don't think I would fit it the same. But yeah, my husband and I just like we jaunt off. If you've never looked at it, check out Lake Louise. It's beautiful. It's like an emerald lake. It's so beautiful. But yeah, it's about I would say like a 2.5 to 3 hour drive from us. So I just chuck the wedding dress into the car and I say, we are going to stop in Canmore. We're going to get ramen because it will be nice and warm. And then we will go to the mountains and I will chuck on my dress. And we usually stay out there for maybe like 15 to 20 minutes. And by the end of it, like my nose is red, my ears are red, my fingers are red, but no pain, no gain.
Yeah, well, and it is such a Knitatude thing to show your designs like that. So I think
Yeah.
everyone enjoys it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's
Do
so
you ever
funny
knit?
because like branding in Calgary is like put a mountain on it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, no, but mountains are beautiful. Not everyone has access to mountains. Like, stop taking these for granted. They're literal tectonic plates smashed into each other. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And do you ever knit patterns from other designers, or are you just busy designing and knitting your own ideas?
I would say that I knit from like I love using other designs as like to get me out of a rut and to be able to learn. So I would say I probably do like 1 to 2 patterns of another designer every single year. And I think it's just really cool because you get to see how their writing style is, how you end up, how they explain different constructions, which is really cool. I would say that also I think I have about 10 Mariners caps from Two of Wands, which is just like a ribbed hat, and they are always on my needles. Where it's just like if I don't know or I'm like in a place of math when it comes to my own patterns and I'm like I just don't want to deal with that right now, I usually knit up one of her hats, which is kind of good because it's my husband's favorite design, which is kind of a pain in the ass because he likes someone else's design better than mine, but it's fine. Like, I'm like, thanks so much,
Okay.
babe. Love it.
Yeah. Well, he does show off your sweaters, so and I bet he
Yeah.
likes them as well.
No, he does. I
um,
remember the first time that I was like, I'm finally gonna make you a sweater, and he was like, really? Can it be a hoodie? Can I have this? And I was like, okay, well, if you're just gonna design it, sure, sounds good. So he did.
yeah. And knitting is a very traditional craft. And how do you infuse innovation to the designs and while respecting its heritage?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's just like to talk about the like size inclusivity conversation again. I think that fashion itself has just kind of ignored or secluded an entire like population. And to me, I love being able to take something that is fashion, which is normally so put forward towards people who are quote unquote straight sized, and be able to like expand it. And I think that's really cool that you're still able to keep like the techniques of knitting and still be able to honor those, but be able to expand them to way more people and have more people become bigger in this craft, like to literally not feel so nervous about making garments because they were never available for them, and actually making that possible now. So I don't know, I feel like that's probably a big thing. And then I also just like always so curious to see how fashion's going to shift and move, and it's it's fun to be able to play with it. I oddly enough, when it comes to like knitting and things, I'm like the worst person. I'm not a big fan of like variegated yarn, and I'm not a big fan of color work, which I feel like is such a faux pas when it comes to knitting. Um, but I think it's still like fun and able to play with those things to make it different. Like I really love including like beads in my work, which is instead of it being color work, it's like you're still using those techniques, but you're including something that wouldn't have been in there normally, which is like beads. Sorry,
Yeah,
that was a long answer.
that's okay. um, Sustainability, that's increasingly becoming a concern in the fashion industry. How do you incorporate sustainable practices into your design process?
Oh, I feel like it always like starts a war, to be totally honest, but it's like wool versus acrylic. I think that it's also like I usually try my best to be able to use fibers that are going to be able to break down a lot easier. So I do really love leaning towards wool. But I also just think that when it comes to sustainability, like that's what knitting is. We're talking about like making our own clothes instead of going to Shein or like Temu and buying something that is $7 and wearing it for a season and then leaving it. So I feel like even if you don't think of the sustainability as a knitter, like you're already doing it, or a crocheter, sorry, as a fiber artist. Um, yeah, it's so wild to like realize how political knitting is, and I don't think people actually really realize that, of like how big of a stance it is when it comes to like what's happening in our environment and our planet. And the things that we're doing to our planet. So just, I think being able to make our own clothes is massive by itself.
It is. Whether you are a good sewist or a good knitter or a crocheter, or it's just awesome to make things you wear by hand.
Yeah.
So, do you go to a knit group or anything, or are you a solitary knitter?
So I actually started my own knit night back in 2014. It happens every single Thursday. We, of course, had to stop because of the pandemic, but we went online, and I probably have most of my like girlfriends because of knit night. And it was just like I either met them while I was still in my market days, and I, instead of having people be like, well, I already know how to knit, I'm not going to buy like a hat from you, I'd be like, that's totally fine. I actually have a knit night and I need more friends. So like if you want to hang out with me, we can do that. So I normally like every single week I get together with like a bunch of friends. I think it's an open call. So if you're in Calgary and you want to knit on a Thursday, we get together from 7 to 9 at Ansem Cafe in Sunnyside. But yeah, other than that, I'm like always knitting when I'm watching a movie, like with my husband. We just like kind of hang out. So I guess it's a mix.
And is it your full-time job being a knitwear designer?
No, I work full time as my official title is an associate creative director. So I work in advertising. So I come from a copywriting background and I write ads. So I work in advertising and marketing, and that's my 9 to 5 slash 9 to 7 job because agencies are wild. And then Knitatude is my on top of it, which is crazy.
But being in marketing and advertising, that really helps you um, showcasing your designs on social media, because I've been following you for years, and I think your social media presence is just perfect. I wish I could do that. So it must help to have all this knowledge.
It, it definitely helps, but I'm always like happy to give tips. So if you just send me a message, I'm happy to. I just like, I love social media. Like, social media definitely has bad aspects to it, a lot of bad aspects to it. But when it comes to like marketing and being able to create a community, like the knit and crochet community is so massive. And it's like, and you're watching more and more generations take up this craft. I think especially because of the pandemic, there were people who were like, I have nothing to do, I'm going to try and learn something that I can do at home. But like TikTok is massive for Gen Z when it comes to like knitting and crocheting. And yeah, it's, I love social media. I have a love-hate relationship with it because some people are really mean on social media. But no, it's been always nice to have a marketing background to be able to be like, okay, if this is my plan and I'm going to market this one specific pattern, how am I going to do that? How long do I need to look in advance? Am I going to start marketing 3 months in advance? Do I show snippets and stories? Do I do posts? Do I do collaborations? Like, it's always like fun to be able to try and figure out what to do next.
Yeah, thank you. Um, Beyond knitwear, what other forms of creative inspiration inspire you? And do you see these influences reflected in your designs?
Oh, yeah. I used to be really, really bad at buying clothes. Like, shopping was a habit. And I think that that's like kind of now become my knitting like inspiration because I'm always like, I love looking at trends and seeing what's happening, what shapes are like now coming out for like every single year. And instead of me just going to the mall and being like, I'll buy that, my first thought is like, how can I make that? And I really look at my closet for inspiration, to figure out what I'm like, what are the gaps, what am I missing? But outside of knitting by itself, I used to I used to do like a lot of sports, and I just started getting into boxing again, which is like nothing to do with knitting and it has nothing to do with crafting at all, but I find that it also like makes my brain shut off, which is kind of nice. I think especially as a small business owner, our brains constantly are going and they never stop. And it's nice to have that as a way to like turn off the valve, which is new for me.
Yes, and have some downtime, and it will often bring you fresh and new ideas if you can just go do something totally different, like boxing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it also gets my aggression. I feel like I'm like pretty tapped into what's happening in the world. So I feel like there's a lot going on that I feel very angry about. And I'm like, it's a lot better to punch a bag than to take that anger out on like yelling at my husband or something, which I would never do. Oh my God, I would never do because I love Todd. He's absolutely wonderful. But it's just nice to have an outlet.
yes, I understand what you mean. My outlet, by the way, is still knitting, but then I knit someone else's designs. So um,
Love it.
let's see. Many people take up knitting as a hobby, especially during times of stress. What advice would you give to beginning knitters who are just starting their knitting journey?
That when you start something, it's going to be stressful, but in the long run, it will not. It's just like riding a bike. It's something new. I think because there's like such a stigma around knitting where it's like, oh, it's like what grandmothers do. And they, it gets this idea that it's really easy to do. And I think people need to realize it's a new skill and it's something that you're going to learn and you're going to fail at and you're going to get better. But the advantage of knitting is that like every single row that you do, you can literally see yourself getting better. So if it's stressing you out at the beginning, don't worry. It's supposed to. You're learning a new craft, but you will get so comfortable and it becomes such like a nice way to just relax and make your own clothes and feel productive. I think that we're in a society that feels like you have to be productive all the time. And knitting by itself is literally seeing your production happen row by row. And that's really gratifying.
Yes, and then when you have an end result and you can wear it and show it, that is so nice. Would you advise people to
Yeah.
start with, for example, scarves first because they don't have to fit exactly?
Yeah, I would say like if you're learning how to knit in the first bit, do something that is going to be instant gratification. So I find like even doing a dishcloth where it's like it's small, you're gonna feel really good when you finish it. I always suggest knitting with larger needles and thicker wool because then you can actually see your stitches, but also it's that instant gratification of seeing every single row build. But yeah, definitely suggest do like something like a headband that you seam in the round or a scarf because then you don't have to worry about like it fitting. And then also once you've like done that, go into knitting a hat in the round because that adds a whole new skill and that opens up a whole new world, honestly, when it comes to like knitting in the round versus knitting flat. So yeah, scarf, headband, then do a hat, then do a sweater.
Do you do socks?
I've knit a few socks. I think that the needles are so small that my brain just like can't compute. I can do them. They're not my favorite project to knit though.
And you are going to be the keynote speaker for season 9 of Knit Stars. Congratulations,
Yeah,
that is so awesome.
thank you.
And
It's
your
very
workshop
exciting.
will be, yeah, it will be about designing and grading. Do you
Mhm.
ever do workshops in real life as well, or is that just Knit Star? And last year, you were in the Crochetpreneurs
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, I so I used to teach at the local yarn store here. It's called Stash. So I used to teach Learn to Knit, but I haven't done any like actual courses in person. I think it's because I'm so nervous. Like the advantage of like doing things on camera is that I can edit it. But no, not in person. But I am really excited about Knit Stars. They come to shoot here in late June, which I'm really excited about. But I like have all my modules kind of like set up and prepped because it goes through like designing one of like how to choose your yarn, where to get inspiration from, how to be able to like figure out your gauge swatch, choose your stitch count, how to know how many to be able to cast on, what are the like different constructions. Like this course is going to be jam packed with so many things that I'm so nervous that it's going to be overwhelming, but hopefully it'll be fine. Yeah. And then like an intro into grading of like how you use your gauge swatch to be able to grade for other sizes. What are the like points that you should be paying attention to when it comes to like neck holes, arm circumferences, etc. And then also I'll be going into how to actually make the pattern. I think people forget that it has to be in a PDF. So I have like a few templates to be able to have people like place stuff, which is going to be fun.
That is really something for many knitters to look forward to.
Yeah.
I was tempted because I'm struggling with my own sweater design now. So
Yeah.
you
Oh, you
never
can
know.
also send me a message. I am an email away.
Yeah, that's true. Did you bring other stuff that you would want to show? Because this is it for my questions, but I would not have you have a stack like this right next to you and me not asking for it.
Oh my gosh, no worries. Honestly, the only things that I have next to me is so Knit Stars. I have a design that comes out with Knit Stars, which is the yarn is from one of my girlfriends. Her name is Erin from Lily and Pine. She's also from like Lily as in like the flower and Pine as in like the pine needle. Very plant-based. And I've made a you can still see that I still have ends to weave in. It's fine. This is one of my exclusive patterns that comes out with Knit Stars. And I'm so excited to be working with Erin because she's just like a gem. She also teaches at Stash. And then the only other thing that I have around me is just a longer version of my confidence crop. So if you are like, that crop that you're wearing right now is a little too cropped, I just have another version of it. And I've also altered the neckline as well. So if you see me where I'm constantly like checking my bra strap, because this was my first sample, and then I was like, I need it closer. So that's been adjusted here. So if you've been noticing me doing that and you're like, oh my gosh, her bra strap is showing and she notices, I have fixed it. But yeah.
Okay, you have one other design that I think is very pretty. It's the one with the princess neckline, so to say, the square
Oh,
neckline and the heart shape.
yeah. It's called the Tesoro, which is, it means sweetheart in Italian. And it has like a sweetheart neckline on it, which is so
Yes,
pretty. I'll
yes,
put it on
and
because
it's
otherwise it makes way more sense. But
oh yeah,
this
for the
top,
people who don't know this design.
yeah, this top took forever to figure out. But yeah, it's got a sweetheart neckline.
Yeah, it is so pretty and
Yeah.
so very well thought of. I really like that one too. So it's on the list.
Yeah, I had so much fun designing this one. And like it's a really good pattern to like go into if you've never done an I-cord bind off. Because you essentially pick up around and then you do an I-cord bind off right away. Which is a great skill to be able to learn, as well as short rows. Because the bust is done by
Yeah.
short rows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's it.
No worries.
Let's make this into something nice and pretty.
No worries. You did have one other question as well about who one of my favorite like designers is that I get inspiration from, and I do have the book.
Okay.
Yeah, so Knitwear by Joan is probably one of my favorite designers. She's in Canada. She's based in Toronto. She's one of like a newer designers, one of the newer designers out there. Like I think she's only been designing for maybe 3 years. And the way that she creates, like the way that she puts things into construction are things that I would have never anticipated. And the way that she writes patterns is just like absolutely beautiful. She's just released a book, I think it was last year, and it is beautiful. Other than like Alexi from Two of Wands, who is also one of my favorite designers, but that's also because she was the first designer that I ever reached out to and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna look into designing. Can you look at my pattern? Tell me what I'm missing." And she was like, "You're missing a gauge. That's very important." I was like, "Basics." Like, thank you. She's like, yeah, you might want to add that. So yeah, I love Knitwear by Joan, and I do love Alexi from Two of Wands because they're very close and they're very sweet. They're very wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. One of the knitters from the hobby group sent me a message earlier, and she said, I think and I hope you are going to interview Chantal. So she was right. It was not just something that dropped out of the air. I have a Make 9 this year, and the sweater scarf is on there. And I told the community that I was going to do an interview with a designer that is on my Make 9. So she made a wild guess, but she guessed correct. So
Watch it. Love
and
it.
thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on your knitting and your designing work. And I hope that you will make many, many more of those pretty designs, and that I can have my cast on party soon to make a sweater scarf.
Oh my God. Honestly, thank you so much for like asking me to be able to come and do this. I love chatting about knitting, so it's been wonderful.
And it was awesome that you said yes, because it's all very exciting to ask.
I know. It's like, wait, will they say anything? Will they? It's like that anxious, like it's like it's like an actual interview where you're like, please like me, please say yes. You're not
But you
alone.
did. So thank you, and I wish you the best of luck with the Knitstar recordings. Have a blast, and I think that everyone who is going to participate in Knitstars is very lucky to have you there. So do enjoy yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Bye bye.